Okay, today is day one of lesson 2.2 for the eighth grade math out of the blue Big Ideas math book. The objective today, students will find the slope of lines in a variety of contexts. The standards we're going to cover in this lesson are 8EE5. The page numbers out of the hardcover book are pages 54 through 61, and out of the practice journal, pages 29 through 32. Today we're going to be working with the slope of a line. The slope is a rate of change between any 2 points on a given line. It is the measure of the steepness of a line. So slope is often used like in construction, like a roof of a house would be the slope. And they also do that maybe with the slope of cement because you don't want it to slope too much. You also don't want it to slope too little because you want water to run away from certain areas. There's a couple different ways that you can find the slope of a line. One of them would be the rise over the run. So if you have a picture, like I have here, you can count the rise, the number of boxes high between the 2 points, and then you can count the run. So here, if I were to look at this picture, my slope would be, well, the rise was 3 and the run was 2, so it would be 3 over 2. In slope, we leave it as an improper fraction. We do not go through and change it to a mixed number. Okay. Another thing that we'll use later in this lesson on day 2 is we'll work with changing when they just give us 2 sets of points and then finding the slope of line based off of 2 points without a picture. Okay, so before we get too far into this, we do need to review from last year what a positive slope looks like versus a negative. A positive slope is going to be when your line, so you identify if it's positive or negative by looking at the line, just the line itself. And if it's going from left to right in an upward fashion, like this blue line, that would be considered a positive. I oftentimes think of a bank account. Like if this was money and you were increasing in money going up, that's a good thing, okay? A negative slope would be when your line is going downward from left to right. Same thing, if you're thinking of money, well, that's a bad thing if you start out with a lot of money and now you have very little money. That would be a negative thing. So if your line is going in that manner, then it would be a negative slope, okay? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to look through some different samples. So the first step is when I look at the slope of this line, I want to identify if it's a positive or a negative slope. So if I just look at the line from left to right, it's going upward. Well, that's a positive thing. So I know it's going to be a positive slope, okay? Then I'm going to go ahead and pick any 2 numbers. So for this example, I'm going to go ahead and just test out a couple different ones to see if I get the same slope on each between no matter what 2 points I pick. Now, the key thing to remember is when you guys get to start picking points, you need to make sure that you pick points that fall on a corner of our graph. So for example, if I picked that one and this one, now the points were already kind of identified for me. You just need to make sure that you're not picking something like, for example, this yellow dot falls right in the middle of a box. You know, I don't know if that's -1.5 or -1 2/3. So you need to make sure that you're picking where it falls right directly on a corner of your graph. Okay, so if I pick these 2 points here, I'm going to do the rise over the run. So the rise was 1, 2 boxes, so that's my top number. Over the run was 1, 2, 3 boxes over to get to the other number. So I get a positive 2/3 for my slope. Let's go ahead and pick 2 other ones. Let's say I didn't pick those 2. Let's say I just picked the 2 pink ones. So this point and this point, which are now blue. Okay, if I were to do the rise over run, now those are pretty far apart. So the key thing is you should probably try and pick the ones that are closest together. But let's say I didn't notice that there were 2 points that were closer together. Can I still get the same answer? Well, we'll go ahead and check it. So my rise, there's my rise. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My run to get over to that other dot was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Does 6 over 9 reduce down to 2/3? Yeah, because 3 goes into each of those. So no matter what 2 points I pick, you're still going to get the same slope. Even if I picked these 2, this one and this one here. Okay, if I do the rise on that, well, it would be the rise, 1, 2, 3, 4. The run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4 over 6 still reduces down to 2/3. So as long as you're picking points that are on corners, it doesn't matter what 2 points you pick. You're still going to get the same slope of a line, okay? So let's go ahead and practice some of these. Oops. Okay, so if I go ahead and pull this one out. Okay, so I've identified 2 points on there for you, and I'll enlarge this just a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and do the rise and the run. So my first question is this a positive or a negative slope? So it's going downward from left to right. Ugh, that's a bad thing if it was money. So it's a negative. And then we're gonna go ahead and do our rise and a run. Now I picked 2 points. Maybe they're not 2 points that are closest, but I went ahead and just picked 2 points on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the rise and the run. So I'm gonna rise. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes. And then my run, and my board's slightly off, so I apologize that that looks above the line. So I had, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 was my rise. Ooh, that doesn't stand out very well. And my run is 2 boxes. So 6 over 2 could be reduced down to 3 over 1. So negative 3 over 1, which when you guys work with slope, you're gonna see it as negative 3. Okay? And you just have to be comfortable with interchanging between negative, like a number over 1 and the whole number itself. So obviously there were 2 points that were actually closer than the 2 that were there, and it looks like it's right here. Okay? All right, so let's try another one. Okay, so here I didn't pick the points. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick them for you, just so that you don't have to go through and, draw it on your whiteboard. So I'm gonna pick 2 points, and I'm seeing a corner point here and a corner point here. So I want you to go ahead and do the rise over the run of that. So rise over run. Okay, and then whether it's positive or negative. So you should end up with the rise is 1 over, so we went up 1 and over 2 boxes, so 1/2. And that's positive because that blue line is going upward from left to right. Okay, so I'm gonna give you another one. And this time I want you to pause the video after I mark the 2 points. And as you're working on these on your own, you're gonna have to pick those 2 points. So if I pick 2 points, I'm seeing 1 right here on the corner. And then I'm just gonna follow it down until I see it cross another corner. Ooh, here's the next one. Okay, so go ahead and work your way through rise over run on that one and whether it's positive or negative. So you can go ahead and pause your video and then check back in just a minute to see if your answer is correct. You should have gotten negative 8/5, and you would leave that as negative 8 over 5. You would not change that. Okay, it's negative because the blue line is going downward from left to right. Okay, there's a couple special lines that sometimes show up where they may ask you the type of line. And this would be one example where you've got a line that's going perfectly vertical. There is no slope to that. There's a rise, but there is no run. So when you come across something like this, that is known as an unidentified slope, okay? I just remember that I could make a U out of that or a no slope out of that. Okay, so unidentified or no slope could also be used. And you won't come across these very often, but every now and then you may come across it maybe on an assessment or a worksheet or something like that. Here's the other one. when you end up with something where you have a perfectly horizontal line. And when you come across something like that, the way that I remember what it's called is I can make a Z out of this, and that would be called a line of zero. So when you have no slope at all, there's no rise on it, there's only a run, that is a slope of zero. So I just remember I can make the letter Z out of it. So you have unidentified when it's going straight up and down, or a no slope, and then you have a slope of zero when it goes straight across. Okay, the other part we're going to work with today is kind of the reversal, where they're going to go ahead and give us a slope that they would like us to create, and they're going to ask us to draw the line for that. So you're going to need a straight edge for this, and we're going to go ahead and work through a slope. So remember that anytime you work with a whole number, the slope, that number is always going to be over 1. So for example, here for A, and this is in your practice journal book, I think it's page 30. So you guys can just work out of page 30 as you're working through this. If I write this out, it would be the same as 2 over 1. Now, that's a positive 2 over 1. So the key thing when you're writing or drawing the lines for a slope is if it's positive, if you have a positive slope, you're going to go up from the point because you're going up in a positive direction. If it is a negative slope, you're going to drop down that number. So here I have a 2 over 1, and it's a positive 2 over 1. So I'm going to go from my black dot, I'm going to go up 2, 1, 2, and no matter what, I'm always going to go to the right. The only time that I will make the exception of not going to the right is if my graph isn't big enough. So I'm going to go to the right 1 spot. So my rise was 2, and my run is going to be 1. So my new dot for the black is right there. Okay, so I'm going to try really hard to erase this so that it's not in the way, which of course then I erased my dot. So there's my dot for the black. So now I'm going to go ahead, take my straight edge, which I have a line, but you guys are going to use your straight edge, and I'm going to cut through this and extend that all the way through. So there's my slope of my line. It's not perfect, but we'll try. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with that lighter gray. So I'm going to rise up 2, and I'm going to go to the right 1. So up 2, 1, 2, over 1 is going to put me right here. And I'm going to go ahead and, once again, connect it with a line. Okay, and what do you notice about those two lines? They're parallel to each other, and they're never going to run into each other. So if you have two lines that have the same slope, both of those slopes are parallel. They're never going to run into each other. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one of these. Just going to shift those off to the side. So this time I have a slope of a negative 1/2. So this is where this part is important, is understanding that if it's negative, we're going to go down. The only time we're not going to do that is if our graph is not big enough. So from the black dot, I'm going to go down 1 because that was my rise. And I know you guys are used to doing rise, but in this case, because it's a negative, we're going to drop down. So we're that up, down, we're going to go down 1, but we're still going to go to the right 2. So down 1 to the right 2 is going to put me right here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw my line through that. Goodness. That was a really, really bad one. Okay, so there's my line. So now I'm going to do the same thing with that lighter gray. So I'm going to go down 1 and to the right 2, which puts me here. And I'm going to go ahead and actually put another line through that. Okay, so there's my two lines of my rise and my run of slope of -1/2. Okay, so let's try another one. So we have 3/4. So this time it's positive. So from each of our dots, we're gonna go up first and then to the right 4. So up 3, puts me right there, and then over 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, my new dots here for the black. Draw my line through that. Goodness gracious, I'm terrible with the starting of the line. Okay, and then do the same thing with this gray dot. So we're gonna go up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 4, 1, 2. My graph's not big enough. What am I gonna do? Okay, so in this case, if your graph isn't big enough, you're gonna have to work your numbers backwards. In other words, instead of going up 3 and to the right, we're gonna end up having to go down 3 and to the left. So if your graph is to the point where it's not big enough, you're gonna have to kind of do everything backwards because you're really trying to work backwards from that gray. So instead of going up 3, I'm gonna go down 3, 1, 2, 3. And then instead of going to the right, I have to do the opposite. So I have to go to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now my dot is right here. And then I should be able to go ahead and draw my line through this. And it makes those two lines parallel to each other. Okay, so for your homework, you're gonna go ahead and finish out graphing of that next, I think there's just one more left, or two more, there's a few more. You're gonna go ahead and graph those out in your book, and then you can check back with me and make sure that you got them correct. So good luck with this one, you guys.